Okay, so what are you saying, people, and welcome back to your favorite YouTube channel. So today, guys, like always, another weekly analysis for you. On the screen of the pairs we'll be analyzing today, but make sure you stay to the end of the video because I do have a bonus pair in store. But yeah, guys, normally I would go through my trades for the week first, but this week I didn't take any positions. Nothing was of good probability this week, so I stayed out the market, stayed patient. Last trade I had was on my dollar CAD position, which I did a full breakdown on my channel, so go check that out if you haven't done it already. I didn't have any positions I was carrying on into the week either. So yeah, very quiet week for me, but next week is looking pretty good, so hopefully we can get back into the market and into the flow of things. But first things first, Euro USD. So Euro USD starting to see some good upside here. Now the buys are starting to look attractive. Last week I said the buys are looking okay, but are slightly aggressive because we haven't had that higher low yet. But the market has now printed that higher low, and just about we have pinched the highs here and created some new highs. So I'm liking what I'm seeing for Euro USD. I'm no longer interested in any type of sells unless something crazy happens and we see a big impulsive, leg breaking through these lows. And of course, we'll be switching back to the bearish side of things. But at the moment, price is now creating this low here, higher low and higher high. So going into next week, I think Euro USD is looking really good on the lower time frames just because of the risk reward. We tested this structure here at 1.07 200 300, looking good for some buys back into the prior high which we formed on Thursday, Friday. And then possibly we could continue a lot higher because again, I've been pointing out this location for Euro USD as a very important area on the daily time frame. If I whip in the old trend line from the low, connecting these higher lows, so 1, 2 and possibly 3. Also you can see we are rejecting a very nice level here, resistance, nice move to the downside, was resistance there briefly, and now the market's starting to hold this area as support. So on the daily time frame, we've got some good confluence here, and as you can see, a bunch of wicks to the downside, starting to see some good confident bullish candle closures on the daily chart. So by the daily time frame, it looks like we could be holding onto this area and possibly seeing a move to the upside, and we're getting that same picture on the 4H time frame and the hourly as well. So we're getting some synchronicity from the high time frames into the lower, which is why the buys are looking pretty good. And again, in terms of risk to reward, you probably want to drop maybe to the hourly or the 30-minute to really maximize it back into the prior high, which is 1.078. If we break through that high, then of course there's a lot of room to the upside. If the daily time frame really kicks off, there's possibilities we could be heading back to the highs. But again, we'll play it safe than sorry because this could turn up into a bigger consolidation. It could fail at the highs again and come over. So the thing is not to be too greedy. Take your profit where you meant to take profit, which is back at those highs. And if we can see the breakout, obviously you can leave some to continue, or most to continue. Obviously how you manage your trades up to you, if you trade with stop loss or whatever. But this is definitely a good point to look at managing the trade just in case we don't break through. If we do, then Euro USD, there's a bunch of places you can target. Obviously here on the left, a bunch of lower highs you can use as points of management, or just looking to take your profit altogether. But going into next week, buys looking pretty good off 1.07 300, looking for a push back into the high at 1.07 800, and plus we could be seeing a lot more upside. But that for me is a really good setup on Euro USD going into next week. Okay, so next up we got dollar yen. So dollar yen, I'm looking at some short-term sells for some longer-term buys. I've been bullish on dollar yen for the past maybe 2-3 weeks now, looking out for a retest of this 137 500. It's actually more like 137 700. I've been looking for the retest of this level for the past 2-3 weeks. Haven't really happened. We've kind of got some weird correction / consolidation going on just above the levels. Haven't really been interested in trading dollar yen. But I'm looking at some short-term sells for some long-term buys, because what I'm looking at is a lovely impulse to the upside. Firstly, if we zoom out, you can see the nice bullish structure the market's created. Also with all of these higher lows here, 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 8. So that's where my bullish bias is derived from. But the reason why I'm saying we can probably look for some short-term sells in the meantime is because if we focus on this part of the market, you can see a lovely bullish leg, quite overextended. So I'm looking at this move here being the correction of that bullish leg. So we've got the first correction here, and now we've pushed up again. Now the market's failing at these highs, as you can see, placing some lower highs now. So I'm looking at another correctional leg to the downside, and possibly the move to the upside. So what I'm getting at is a big bull flag, basically. So you've got the impulse, the bull flag, which gives us that descending channel, and then looking for the continuation to the upside. If we're going to continue, of course, I'll monitor price action when we get there, because we might just break straight through and there won't be a trade for me to take. But Well, I'm looking at some short-term sells because we do have that possible bearish channel building up with these lower highs. We do have some nice resistance around that area as well. So this, sell opportunity is slightly more against the grain, a little bit more aggressive, counter trend, but nonetheless still a decent opportunity for some buys later on. So I want to keep an eye on this area and obviously this area for the sells and the buys. They both look pretty good. If again I see good price action, good rejection, good momentum, I'll be open to take both positions. So possibly look to sell it down to buy back up later. If the market just starts breaking through and obviously the bullish momentum wins and the market continues, I'll back away. And same thing for the buys here as well. If the market just collapses straight through, there's no need for me to take a trade there. So I'll keep an eye on these two areas. So keep an eye on 139.800 and also 137.700 for some buys and previously for some sells. But yeah, USD is looking pretty good. So I'm looking at some more downside first and then some buys later in the week, hopefully. Okay, so next up, dollar CAD. So USD CAD coming to a very nice place here. This is where I was looking for the market to come into last week. And I'm keeping my eye on USD CAD because we're coming to a very nice area. You can see lovely support level here. You can see we're getting a bunch of higher lows. Now, this is not the most bullish structure in the world. As you can see, it's practically consolidation, but there is a slight inclination to price here for all these higher lows. So if we can hold this, we can probably see another push to the upside. If the market does break through, however, still the downside looks pretty good as well, because if you do break through this structure, we'll be expecting a lot more downside, expecting a bigger breakout of the consolidation. So there's a lot of room south as well. So it's not like, if the buys don't play out, it's doomsday. With trades we can go both ways. So if the market doesn't hold that structure, not the end of the world, shift our bias and start looking for some sells going down. So at the moment in time, we're still holding the area, so sells are still a little bit premature, but if we do break through, keep an eye on the sells. But yeah, coming to the week, you can still see, coming to the end of the week, you can still see we're firing a lot of wicks into this area. So coming into the start of next week, if we can maintain those wicks, then there could actually be some signs for some nice buys Monday, Tuesday, and actually getting involved with USD CAD buys and having a stop loss at a pretty safe location, because if price is going to take your stop loss here, it's either number one, it's just a big fake out, which is difficult to avoid with any strategy. You will get faked out sometimes. As long as you have an electronic stop loss, that's always a risk. And number two is because the market is reversing. So if you do get stopped out and the market breaks lower and starts creating some lower lows and lower highs, we just shift our bias and take advantage of that in the opposite direction. But it's a pretty safe stop loss, and it really does maximize the risk to rewards, because you're getting down low, and possibly if we see a repeat of this pattern, you probably could expect price to come back to the highs here, which is a pretty attractive prospect for a trade. But of course, you don't necessarily have to have your TP all the way up there. You can take profit wherever you want, but we do have some healthy targets we could be aiming for. So USD CAD is still eyeing up some buys. We're still holding up a very nice place. You need to see a bit more evidence coming onto Monday that we are holding onto that level, and then we can start looking for some longs. If you do break through, like I said, shift the bias and we start looking for some sells to the downside. But at the moment, we're still holding on to that area, so looking for buys into next week for dollar CAD. Okay, so now on to Euro Pound. So Euro Pound looking exceptionally bearish. This was looking very good last week, and it's still looking good coming into this week, despite not coming into my level of interest. I was hoping price was going to pull back into this level. Lovely wicks into this area around 0.866. Didn't quite make it there, unfortunately. We came back to retest some lower time frame areas. As you can see on the left, this is where a lot of momentum came from. Price came back into that area and then fell to the downside. So sometimes price is going to come to your area, sometimes not. Sometimes there's things to learn from it as well, so do take note of that. But then again, we're not going to be perfect here. Sometimes you just won't get price coming to your areas, and that's something we got to deal with as traders. Nonetheless, next week is still looking good. As you can see, momentum is still alive. That's one of the key things I'm looking for. Good, healthy structure in terms of trends. So seeing low lows and low highs, higher highs and higher lows, and good momentum, which is what we're still seeing with Euro Pound. As you can still see, bearish momentum is still alive in the market. Still seeing that the bears are confident in charge. And again, I don't care if it's bears or bulls. I just want to see some good momentum, because as a trader, I just want to get on the back of that and follow that wherever it's going, basically. So yeah, Euro Pound's looking good. I'm looking at a comeback to retest the structure here. Nice break and retest. As you can see, we've failed to get a break and retest on the prior low a couple times now. So as you can see, this is the prior low, price broke through, never really came back for that bigger retest, broke through again, never came back for that bigger retest. So I'm expecting us to finally give up on that and actually see a retest of our structure, and actually the market's starting to break through these lows here as well. So I do think a pullback is expected. So for euro pound, looking for a continuation of this bearish trend. 0.858 is what I'm after, and some more downside targets could just be where the market pulls back from. I suppose there's some nice areas here as well, which was some nice resistance the market broke through, haven't come back for a retest at 0.85, so that's a big psychological level as well. So that could be a nice target to aim for if you want to push your trade a little bit further. But let's say the market pulls back from here, that could be a nice target just to aim for, and maybe leave a little bit to trickle to 0.85 if you're feeling a little bit braver. But yeah, the way I see it, euro pound still giving us really good structure here. Momentum is still looking good as well. So all I'm looking at is continue that momentum to the downside. 0.85 looks like a good target to aim for. We still got these consecutive lower highs, as you can see, 1, 2, 3. Let's try and get another one for another push to the downside. So euro pound shorts going to next week, keep an eye on 0.858 for some sells, and overall target 0.85 looking good as well. Okay, so now on to AUD/USD. So I was looking to sell this one this week, but we never saw the setup materialize. I was looking for the retest of this structure here, which is 0.8664, and a slight retest at the end of last week. So this week I was looking for one more spike into that same area, and then the drop to the downside. We did get the spike, but it came late into the day, and the market wasn't displaying a lot of momentum. So this was coming end of New York, coming to Asian. Market was moving sideways. Then we had some news for Aussie, and obviously the market just broke straight through that level, completely invalidated the setup. I woke up and the market was trading up here. So by that time, I was still looking for sells for the rest of the week, but no, I knew there's an uptrend here at play. So the sells weren't looking attractive anymore unless we broke structure again to the downside, which evidently we never did. So AUD/USD is still looking bearish on the higher time frames, as you can still see here. Market broke to the downside, gave us the high, the low, the lower high, the lower low. So I'm still looking to sell this pair nonetheless, all this bullish momentum, but I am going to be careful. I want to see a lot of signs of rejection. We're coming to a nice area here of resistance, also into a nice trend line, connecting these major highs in the 4 time frame. As you can see, high there, low, high, low. Looking for us to place another one, and a new low. Obviously, you guys get the picture, but I want to see a lot of evidence that we are rejecting this area. I want to see a lot of wicks, big shift in momentum from this area before I get in, because I'm trying to call the top here of this kind of hourly trend for us to continue in that bearish trend on the higher time frame, where I could be wrong. The market might just want to continue bullish. So I'm not going to be ignorant to the fact that we are displaying a lot of bullish momentum right now. I'm not trying to call the top of that move, but if you start seeing some really good rejection, some good wicks in this area, I'll look to take the trade and anticipate a bigger sell-off. Risk rewards looking phenomenal if that plays out, as we can see. Even just back down to the prior low. Risk reward could be 5, 6, 7, 8, depending on your entry there, or you don't necessarily have to hold it that long. Again, I probably won't either. So yeah, AUD/USD for me, sells looking good from 0.674 at the moment. Market still looking bullish, could definitely break through that level quite easily if this momentum continues. So we need to see some good signs of rejection, so I will keep an eye out on that area early next week, because obviously we're trading the zone right now. As the market opens, we'll be in that zone. So London session Monday, I'll be keeping an eye to see what we're doing there, and then I'll make my decision of what I want to do for my trades. But for me, definitely still looking at sells. As long as we stay below this point here at 0.682, I would still be looking for sells. If I don't get the sells there, I'll wait for some more development, and a better opportunity might arise later in the week or the week after. But for now, this is the setup I'm keeping an eye on. So 0.674, keep an eye out for some sells, and overall targets back down to the prior low at 0.64735. Okay, so over to New Zealand CAD. So this one, particularly bearish this week, did recover most of the price action though. But yeah, it's barely made a dent in the bearish momentum we've seen over the past couple of weeks now. The market's had a really big tank since the high of 23rd of May. The market has been falling aggressively. So I'm still looking at bigger pullbacks for this one. The market on the higher time frame still displaying a lot of bearish momentum. And these are still my two areas of interest, which I've been talking about for at least a couple of weeks now, probably longer. So NZD CAD 0.82600, 0.83700 are both the areas of interest for me for some sales. Anything else I'm not really too interested in. There might be some trades on the lower time frames, which again, if you're on the lower time frames, look for those trades. But me, I'm focusing on the 4H setups and 4H areas of interest, which still remain at these two areas. No significant level has developed yet that I would be happy to trade from apart from these two levels. So NZD CAD for me, as we can zoom out, you can see the market still making lower lows and lower highs. Aggressive move to the downside, breaking through. It's been quite corrective ever since the breakout, so we're expecting to see a bigger pullback, which I believe the market could be looking to do at the moment. Looks like we're starting to break through some highs, displaying some nice momentum. So NZD CAD, I'm expecting some upside this week, hopefully come into those areas. And then, yeah, we can start looking for some sells. Of course, I'll monitor how price actually reacts with these levels. I'm not looking just to dive in once we get there. I want to see some good evidence that we are rejecting these levels. Theoretically, targets, back down to the prior low. Again, I'm probably not sure if I'll hold it that long. It depends on the risk reward as well. But for now, for the setup, I'm just going to keep it down at those lows because no other, proper logical target has developed yet. So from a structural play, you expect price to get back down to the prior low if we're going to form a lower high. So as well, I'll be looking to target outright. But it depends on risk reward and how things develop on our way there as well. So do take note for that. But in terms of the entries, it's definitely going to be one of those two areas for me at 0.826 and 0.837. So NZD CAD still bearish, higher time frame still look good. I want to see a bigger pullback, which I think could be happening this week. And yeah, hopefully get some nice sells back down to the prior lows next week as well. Okay, so for pound NZD, I'm still looking for longs this week. Price is still looking pretty bullish. It does look like we may be printing a lower high, as you can see there. So we might see a bigger retracement. So I'm still interested in this pullback here. Lovely pullback into this level here. We had a lovely breakout, never got the retest. So 2.013 is still a nice level of interest. As you can see, we just about kissed this level this week. So buys from here still look good. As you can see, if we do come back in, possible double bottom for push back to the highs, or we might see a bigger retracement back down to this level and then the continuation higher. Either which way, still bullish on pound NZD, looking for a big move to the upside. If I whip out the old Fibonacci, as you can see, we've got the low to the low to the high there, and then we've got the 50 and 0.618 in this area. So we might see that deeper pullback, hence why we're getting the lower high, which could give us the bigger pullback into that area before the big move up. Either which way, they're both good areas, so keep an eye on both of them. First area, I've got around 2.03947. I do still expect a lot more upside for pound NZD based on higher time frame price action as well. I'm still looking for price to come into the highs all the way over here on the left as well. So for me, I'm still pretty bullish on the pair, but we might have a bigger retracement this week into 2.015 as well. So do stay vigilant to that. But yeah, pound NZD next week, these are the setups going forward. Okay, so now on to CAD Yen. So CAD Yen has hit the level I was looking for last week. We had this lovely support level, which is the prior swing low here. As you can see, if I take that across, this is a lovely support, market pullback, broke through the level, and now we're getting a retest. So potentially we could be seeing a big rollover to the downside if we can reject this successfully. And what I mean by that is start breaking structure to the downside. As we can evidently see, the market's still printing all of these high lows here. And if that remains, the market could easily break through this level and continue to the upside. If that's the case, I want price to clear the level, then we can start looking for pullbacks on top of it and start continuing that momentum to the upside. CAD Yen is still pretty bullish and multiple time frames, 4H daily, weekly, still displaying a lot of bullish momentum, which we don't really want to be calling the tops against. Yeah, I'm definitely not really a trader to look to call the tops and reversals, but this is a place that we could potentially reverse from. So what I'm looking for is the market to start breaking some structure. Let me tidy this up a little bit. So what I'm looking for is the market to start breaking some structure, start creating some low lows and lower highs, and then I'll look to jump on the back of these lower highs too short to the downside. Probably a retest of this area here. Lovely support and resistance, as we can see, resistance there, support there. Start breaking through that, get some lower highs going. This could be a very nice place to short. We've got some higher time frame confidence, obviously rejecting the higher time frame level. starting breaking some structure, creating some lower lows and lower highs, taking out these lows here. And then the lower highs start looking good to short. And again, you know, we've got a bunch of targets we can be looking for. You know, even push back down to this prior high there as well, or even further. It's going to be up to you based on your risk reward and how you want to manage your positions. But yeah, CAD yen, fantastic place to start looking for some sells. But I want to be, you know, getting onto the second, third, fourth high low, not trying to be the person who gets into the first. I'm looking for probability, not just, you know, big risk reward and trying to call the top or bottom and anything. So CAD yen for me is still bullish. If the market breaks through and starts seeing higher highs and higher lows, that could easily happen. If that's the case, like I said, we'll look for some buys above that area. But right now, I don't really want to be buying into that level of resistance. I did say coming to this week, I was looking for buys. I was looking for a pullback into this area, didn't quite get it. And the market's going to be bit choppy, bit rangy this week. So hopefully we can see a nice reaction to the downside and get some decent sales going. But at the moment in time, still bullish, so we need that breaker structure first. But yeah, looking for some sales from around about 103,500 to the downside this week. Okay, so now on to pound USD. So pound USD lately has been all over the place. You're starting to see some good price action now and starting to see some good momentum in a particular direction now. So I'm starting to like pound USD price action, but for the past 2, 3, 4 weeks, I haven't really been a big fan of it. And if you guys have been watching the content on the channel, you probably would know that, but it's starting to look pretty good now. We're getting some nice bullish structure here, low, high, and starting to see some good bullish momentum as well. Momentum in a particular direction. We had this big impulse down, so I wasn't too sure whether the price action had a big impulse up, big impulse down. I wasn't really wanting to buy pound USD, even though we had a big breakout last week. And this week we came back inside of 1.245, which was this big daily level here. So the market was kind of just fluctuating in and about this area. But as you can see, we managed to climb back above it. Now the market is holding it on the daily time frame. So as things stand, I'm looking for simply just another push back into the prior highs. We could potentially go a lot further as well, but as you can see, resistance now holds support there on the daily time frame, and on the full H as well. I'm getting some nice bullish structure here too. So simply looking another pullback, next high low, and a continuation to the upside. Very, very simple price action, but a very, very high probability setup. As long as we get the retracement, of course, there's a possibility you might just open up bullish and continue higher and not get the trade. If that happens, it happens. If we do get a pullback, you know, coming back to some of these areas here, this is a lovely place to go long, because you've got a lot of confidence in the higher time frames. Daily holding the key level, daily still showing a lot of bullish momentum. 4H giving us higher highs and higher lows. Now I was looking for a point of interest, you know, good confluence to actually trade from. And there we go. And this is a lovely area to do it. That prior resistance where we got that big wick. Market's coming, broke through, no retest yet. Could see a nice little retracement into that area. Catch the third higher low. You might even see a deeper retest into 1.245 again. So do watch out for that. But as you can see, the market's printing these higher lows. So there's a possibility to get a third one and then see the final push back into that resistance around 1.26600. So that's the plan for pound USD. Structure looks very good, you know, in terms of the clarity and the momentum we're seeing. So I do like this setup on pound USD. Just want to see that last retracement leg, and then we can take advantage of that final push back into the highs and maybe even higher as well. But yeah, pound USD looks very good for next week. Hoping you should get that pullback in time, because obviously we might just continue higher. But yeah, looking for buys from around 1.245. No, well, from 1.245, which is this level here, but probably more likely 1.25, which will be this level. So both of those levels, but 1.24, 1.25. Keep saying 1.24. 1.25 definitely looks likely. So this level 1.25 looks good. 1.245 below it. Don't know what's going on. But yeah, good setup there for pound USD. Keep an eye out for some buys for this one next week. Okay, so now on to pound CAD. So pound CAD, I'm looking at sales for this one. Price action is looking pretty good on the higher time frames. As you can see, we had that big fake out to the upside last week, which was this big move here. I'm looking at price coming back for the retest of this resistance for another move to the downside this week. I said I was looking for a push into this support level. Didn't quite see that this week. We came pretty close. We obviously cleared the lows here, had a nice break and retest a couple times, but we just found support here and didn't quite make it into that daily level there. And as you can see, since then, big push to the upside. We had some CAD news and as you can see, price reacted quite bullish to that. So yeah, pound CAD for me, I'm still looking at sells. As you can see, the market's starting to create some bearish structure now at the low, the lower high there, sorry, the low break structure, new lows here. So I'm looking at another lower high developing in this area. We've got a really nice trend line coming through the market as such. Obviously, we've got the key daily level there as well. And I think we're coming into 0.786 or the fib if I map it out from the high to the low. 0.618 there, 0.786 just above it. So a nice area of confluence for another move to the downside into that leg, or just back down into the prior low. To be fair, doesn't necessarily have to be 1.66 into the daily zone. But yeah, in terms of direction, pound CAD definitely looking at sells and targets more or less around 1.66. So keep an eye on this 1.68 area, good confluence, start to see some nice bearish structure from this lower, well, that original high there, low, lower high, low. So now looking at a lower high developing for another move back down. So pound CAD looking at sells, 1.68, 1.68, 500 area of interest, area of confluence, and looking at sells back down into the prior low around about 1.66 for next week. Okay, so now on to pound yen. So pound yen was very, very bullish this week. As we can see, another big move to the upside. Price came back and respected this support level and used it as a catapult to get itself going to the upside. But I was expecting to see a bit more downside since the market was very, very corrective. As you can see, very exhausted, and it still is quite exhausted. Even had a nice bullish move, but as you can see, we're getting choppy again. So I'm not really trying to buy pound USD on the low time frames. I do think you guys can have some some good opportunities in the low time frames to take advantage of these shorter term buys, and even come back down into some areas here. So my best advice for pound yen is definitely some buys for this one. But again, it's just a little bit corrective, and it's definitely a market coming into its last legs. Not that it can't go further. This market can still fly another 300, 400 pips to the upside. But I know the setup that I'm looking for. I want bigger pullbacks. I want more confident momentum as well. And currently what we're seeing is very small body bullish candles driving us higher, apart from some big candles there. So there's just much better setups elsewhere for me, which I'm interested in, rather than looking to buy a pound yen. It's not a bad buy because, again, if you look at the monthly, weekly, daily, 4H, all displaying bullish momentum. So the direction of this market is still to the upside. So taking buys is never really going to be a bad idea. Just make sure you do it at some good areas of value with some good price action, of course. But for me, there's some other pairs that just look a lot better in terms of confluence and the momentum and the quality of structure. So I'm not really focused on pound yen. But if you are, I'll suggest, looking at hourly, 30-minute, drop to the lower time frame, just so you don't have to hold the position too long to get good risk rewards. Because again, we're trading above some key highs here on the left. Don't necessarily want to be holding your trades too long, just in case we have some bigger pullbacks in store. So yeah, the way I see it for pound yen, keep an eye on 174.300 and also 173.684. As you can see, we're still printing these higher lows. Potentially could come back a little bit deeper, or maybe just retest the prior high. But of course, use your price action and your candlestick knowledge to determine if price is actually rejecting the level or not, or possibly to break through. But yeah, going into next week, all I can see is bullish structure. Like I said, all high time frames are still bullish, so I'm not looking to sell pound yen at all until I start to see some break of structure. I was expecting us to get it here and then break lower. We didn't, so we might do it eventually and then break structure. Then that's what I'll be interested for sales. But at the moment, still bullish conditions, so we'll be expecting another bump to the upside. So keep an eye out for some buys, 174.5 and also 173.7. But yeah, still definitely bullish on pound yen. Okay, so now on to gold. So gold this week, more or less consolidation. And again, not too over the moon with gold's price action, as you can see. Just on a box around the current price action, and we had some equal highs up here around 1780 and some equal lows here at 1740. So on the 4H time frame, I know people in the low time frames are trying to trade within this area, and again, if you got a plan in place, follow that plan. But for me, I'm staying away from everything inside this area because this is all consolidation to me. My edge is definitely a lower probability in these conditions rather than when we had some good momentum here. I remember I was looking for the retest of this support level. I was hoping we could see a pullback into this area and catch the sell. Never did that, and the market kind of just consolidated ever since this big dump. So I'm kind of waiting for price to pick up again and start clearing the highs or clearing the lows. The market is still holding on to a very key resistance turn support, so we might see the market favor some upside, because as you can see, resistance here, we are rejecting a couple times. Maybe you are going to break higher I don't know, again, I'm not really too bothered. I'm just waiting for us to get that big breakout, because if it is to the downside and we see some confident price action to the downside, big candles closing to the downside like we saw here, if we have that repeat here as well, then obviously I'll be 100% looking to sell the market, and same thing with the buys as well. If we start seeing some aggressive bullish structure breaking to the upside, I'll be anticipating this being at the next higher low. If I zoom out on the daily, obviously you've got the bigger structure, low, high, and possibly new low. So if you do start clearing the highs there, I'll anticipate this being the next high low. Now I'll be looking at buys back into that resistance there. So just pullbacks on the way up back to 2060, back to the prior major highs in that weekly zone there. So either which way, I can see good opportunities. All I can say right now for gold is that I'm not going to be looking to trade in this area. So gold for me is pretty much a waiting game, waiting for the breakout. As to which way, like I said, I might be leaning to the upside because of that daily resistance, but that has no bearing on what I'm doing. I'm just going to wait for the breakout. If I favor one side or the other, doesn't matter, because the price goes the other way, then I'm looking to sell. So that's the main important thing. So yeah, gold. I'm looking for the breakout 1980 and 1940 are the areas I've got the breakout levels placed at, the high and the low of the range. So those are the particular levels I'm looking to break. So even if this level here breaks on the lower time frames, I'm not interested. Might be a short-term buy into that level on the lower time frames, so that could be something there. But again, in this range, I'm staying away for myself, waiting for the bigger breakout. Then that momentum, I'll be more than happy to look to follow. So gold, this is what I've got going for this one. Looking for the breakout of 1980 and 1940. Pretty neutral on gold, but we'll wait to see which way we break out, and I'll look for trades in that direction. Okay, so over to Bitcoin. So Bitcoin's seen some downside this weekend so far. The market's wicking around here as well. So crypto is seeing some interesting behavior. Bitcoin as well, not as much as some of the others, but nonetheless, Bitcoin's the one we're analyzing today. So yeah, Bitcoin, as I said, there could be some nice buys at 25k. We came so close last week, so close to see a nice up move from this level. It's the buys I've been calling for at least a month now, probably 3-4 weeks. Yeah, probably a month at least. I've been calling for some buys around 25k, and after this big sell-off, I thought we were going to get the move in 25k. We came pretty close, saw a big rejection just above it, and then a big move to the upside. Since then, the market has come back down into the same support, and I would expect these lows to clear and come into 25k. However, the market's forming all of these lower highs, so the buys, which once looked fantastic maybe 2-3 weeks ago, don't look as good as anymore. And the reason I say that, the level's still good. We haven't tested the levels, not like the level has diminished in value. The level's still good. If I go to the daily time frame, we broke through with a lot of momentum, never got the retest of that level. We had a big fake out to the downside prior to that as well. So the level is good, and I'm pretty sure we got the 50 of the fib at this same area too. So the level is good in terms of confluence, and just the strength of the level looks good. But the fact that we're getting a lot of lower highs here means it's going to be difficult to see a big move from this level. And I say that because normally the market moves in the path of least resistance. Sometimes with fundamentals and news, sometimes that goes out the window, but normally the market moves in the path of least resistance. So the market won't suddenly just see a huge move like this unless something fundamentally happens. In crypto, a lot of people start buying it, or something happens around the world. Anything could cause something like this to happen. But it's going to take a lot of energy for us to go and clear each one of these highs and see that big push to the upside. So although it's a good level here at 25k to buy from, we have to be careful at each one of these lower highs, because each one of these lower highs is where the sellers will be lurking to keep selling it to the downside. Because for the past month or so, we've been seeing a pretty comfortable bearish trend to the downside. Lower high, lower high, lower high, lower high, lower high. So each time the market does come up, we find resistance and we work our way back down again. So buying from this area does look good, but we're coming straight back into resistance. So we want to be taking our partials, pretty early on, coming to 26k, 26,500. And then possibly that up move could be at play. But you have to be super careful, because if this bearish structure is going to continue, 25k most likely will break eventually. You might get a bounce initially, but I would expect the market to come back down and break through, and expect this bearish trend to go to continue, because this is creating some solid lower highs, and we've got some solid resistance, staring us in the face here for the buy. So For next week, I'm still going to keep an eye on 25k, still a decent area to buy from, but in terms of the targets, I'm going to be a lot more conservative with them. So coming into this area here, this is some lovely support there. This is probably going to be the first TP area where securing profits and move stop loss to break even. Obviously kind of lines up with this bigger support level here on the left. So coming to around 26,500, no, 26,250 even. Coming to this area, this is where I want to secure some profits, and then possibility we can probably stretch the trade a lot further, you know, have multiple TPs on the way up. So the prospect of the trade is pretty high. You know, we could come back to the highs there, but it could just end up seeing a nice move and something like this happen. So we've got to protect ourselves against that. You know, stop loss to break even, take some partial off the table. So next week, still looking at buys for Bitcoin, 25k, but yeah, got a lot of friction in our direction here, so need to be a little bit careful with the TPs, not trying to be too greedy. So looking at buys from 25k as we've done for the past few weeks. Targets 26,200 and then, you know, 27,500. But like I said, be careful with the resistance there because we could potentially hold and come back down again. But that's the analysis going forward for Bitcoin. And finally, onto our bonus pair, which this week we've got it as NZD JPY. This pair is looking pretty good. And to be fair, after going through all the markets that I trade, NZD JPY is the best pair for me next week. Sometimes it's a part of the pairs that I do every week. So sometimes the bonus pair is part of the top 5, but not necessarily the best pair. NZD JPY is probably the best pair in terms of the confluence, how things are shaping up on the higher time frames. If I start on the weekly, as you can see, we've got a lovely break and retest of this resistance here. So overall, as the JPY is in a sluggish uptrend, we have consolidation here, but as you can see, the market is still favoring the upside, long bullish legs to the upside. So naturally, I'm expecting us to return back to resistance up here like we did not too long ago. And as you can see, we had a lovely level of resistance here on the weekly, which is now starting to hold as support here on the weekly. So resistance, break and retest, support. As you can see, a couple wicks there to the downside, and now we're getting this beautiful bullish engulfing that prior kind of pin bar candle. So I'm expecting to see a continuation back to that same resistance over the next week to week or two, maybe 3 weeks, depending on how long it takes us. But I'm expecting to see an up move there on the higher time frame. So from a higher time frame perspective, things are looking pretty good, and we've taken it down to the 4H as well. Now we're starting to see some good bullish momentum to the upside here too. So a really nice bullish move, and again another bullish move. So I'm liking this structure and what it looks to me like a big inverse head and shoulder. So as we can see, left shoulder, head, right shoulder, we're snapping through the neckline, and obviously with momentum too. So that's kind of the cherry on top. So now I'm just looking at a pullback back onto the neckline, or the prior high, the prior resistance that we just broken through, which we haven't got retest on the 4H yet, maybe in the lower time frames with that wick. But again, I'm looking at it on the 4H perspective, so I'm looking to see if we can come back into this area. Next high low, have the retest of the neckline of that inverse head and shoulders. Then we've got a long way to go back to the high of the weekly level. Again, don't necessarily have to hold it all the way up to 87,500 into the high. You know, there's some areas here you can look to target for all these wicks here where we just had that big breakout from. So 86,500 could definitely be a point of interest for some TPs, or just calling it a day, or just managing the trade. But nonetheless, NZJPY buys are looking very, very attractive, and long-term target back to the highs at 87,400. And the reason why it's such a good setup is because we've got good high time frame confluence with good momentum as well, and we've got a good point of interest too. So everything is kind of lining up well, as you can see on the weekly time frame with that break and retest. So a lot of layers to this trade. Just need to see some good retracement, some good price action for the entries, and then hopefully we can get a nice successful trade. And again, even if it's such a good trade opportunity, it can still fail as well, which is why we use our risk management to protect ourselves in the market. But in terms of the quality of the setup, which all we can do as traders is look for good quality setups, this one definitely fits the bill. So we'll be keeping an eye on NZJPY buys from around 85 back to 87,300 next week. And that concludes this video, guys. So thank you so much for watching. If you have found it useful, please be sure to drop a like and subscribe if you haven't done already. Feel free to check out my Telegram. I'll link to that in the description. I share my updates there, trades during the week, so feel free to check that out if you haven't done already. But thank you so much for coming to the channel and watching the video. Like I said, drop a like and subscribe. Have a great weekend, and I'll catch you all in the next one.